when we were at the Lake County Poorhouse, a question had come up about intelligent hauntings and residual hauntings, and people that ghost hunt have their explanations, like a broken record, but I think your explanation is really good.
Well, I mean, first is just the language, because when we say ghost or spirit or anything else, we have each person using the word may have a different meaning. When we go to a location, generally we're looking for what we think are the remaining spirits of once intelligent people, usually human spirits, that have passed on. But there are ghosts. I use the word ghost for human spirits, intelligent human spirits, and then there are residual hauntings, like memory ghosts, echoes. A residual haunting is not a person. It's not the soul or the spirit of someone. There's nothing intelligent about it. It's more a fingerprint in time, an echo usually of an intense traumatic event. The most common place that many people experience this sort of thing is like Gettysburg or any haunted battlefield, where multiple people repeatedly will perceive the battle replaying itself at various times. Logic and even history tells us that not every single person in the battle died. Not all of those souls could possibly be there as actual intelligent ghosts. So what you're seeing when you see that replay is not the ghost of every single soldier who fought at Gettysburg. Not all of them could have died in that moment. What you're seeing is a moment frozen in time, and it plays and replays. There are, in my opinion, many variables that help to solidify something like that. There's this residual haunting, this echo. And battlefields are common because it's this tremendously, cataclysmically traumatic event. There's all sorts of emotion, heightened moment, and it just all puts itself and imprints itself on the time. Imprints itself on the land. Somebody at the History Center actually had brought up the idea that it was that it was the memory of the land itself kind of holding that, which her language differs from my language, but at the same time I feel that our perceptions correlate, because having walked across the field of Gettysburg, it was something about the field itself that made this such a potent replay, such a potent residual haunting. I mean, that's not to say that there aren't intelligent ghosts at Gettysburg or even at some of the battlefields. For the Greeks and Romans in the classical world, their most famous one, their version of the Gettysburg ghosts would be the field of Marathon. And there are some intelligent spirits of people who died there, but mostly it's, like I said, that fingerprint. Just the event itself has left its mark.
Do you think, now when it comes to environment, obviously because I completely follow it with all this emotion and everything attached to something, like a battle, that's imprinted there. When you're saying the field, is it because of the action that it's imprinted there? I guess, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, do we actually imprint the environment through that action, or was it actually the environment itself?
In my opinion, it's a combination of both.
Because how people say rocks, or certain rocks that imprint it. I'm like, okay.
In my opinion, it's a conflux of the traumatic event plus a number of other variables, at least one of which is the environment itself. Having walked across the field of Gettysburg, and actually a lot of Pennsylvania, there's something very odd about the geology.
I remember you saying how you felt it was always slanted.
Yeah, well, right, there was a certain area in Pennsylvania that I could not feel, like I had a really hard time of walking in the ground. Just
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the ground. well, Pittsburgh is just hilly as...
Yeah, right, yeah.
But this was, I learned after the fact, very close to where there's a coal fire that is still burning.
Oh.
That part of Pennsylvania that is like, kind of in danger of just collapsing in on itself.
Yeah.
And it just, something didn't feel right there.
The name slipped me, but Silent Hill, the movie Silent Hill, was actually based on some of the environmental things you see in Silent Hill.
But Gettysburg, there's all these, there's native bedrock and these stones that are just kind of poking up through the field itself. It's very rocky, and that has this sort of like, this is going to sound probably way more poetic than any kind of technical, but it was like the bones of the earth are poking up through the soil itself, and something about that deep connection that really grounded the impression, that grounded and held what went on there. I think that plays a role, but I also think that there are other variables as well, some of which are too numerous to ever be able to fully calculate for what causes something like that to coalesce in that time and in that place. Additional variables are why it will replay at certain times,
Right.
or why it will replay to certain people, and why sometimes it seems inert. It doesn't seem like it's not like it's playing constantly all the time.
Right.
There's peak moments and times when it seems to just erupt. Curiously, a lot of those reports, I'd love to see the statistics to see how many of them tend to be at liminal points of the day. So toward the evening, toward dusk, in the early morning hours, like as things are in our human perceptions shifting from one thing to the other between times.
Well, yeah, no, it's very interesting. And I mean, I've not done enough studies myself for this, but like if a murder took place at a certain time, 6 p.m., let's say, on the dot, then there would be theories out there, people saying, well, we should try to do EVP sessions at 6, thinking that. But the way time is linear.
Yeah.
So that's what I guess baffles my mind, that really it doesn't matter what the day is in time, only if, I guess, you follow what I'm saying, I guess the spirits...
My answer would be is if the timing was essential to the intelligent spirit tied to that haunting,
yes,
then
they
you
would know.
have consistent activity at that time. But if the time didn't have anything to do with anything or any relevance for the spirit, then
Right.
it's really not going to be a big
versus
deal.
a random murder that had no time involved whatsoever, just happened, versus a killer that knew exactly at this time, I'm going to kill this family, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's 11:11, and like for some reason that's very significant, and that of course presumes that what is haunting at the time is an intelligent ghost as opposed to a residual.
If it was residual, it would just be happening whenever.
Although,
what you're saying.
Now, at least it's anecdotal information, but residual hauntings are the ones that do seem sometimes to have kind of some sort of cycle to them. That, like, every year on a certain date, this figure is seen to, like, walk down the hallway. Now, without further investigation, we can't 100% guarantee that that's not just, urban legend, frankly. Because the old style of paranormal investigation as such was really just collecting the ghost stories. Local clergy and sometimes scientists or people who were in the budding field of science at the time would go and make an inquiry of what people would report in the areas. And it's really hard to sift from legitimate experience and folklore and urban legend, and there is no way, if you go through, like, Granville's stuff with, like, the drummer of Tedworth, or, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Some of the great Irish hauntings where, like, the family banshee appears at like every death or whatever, or the black coach, or the the great fairy hounds are chasing people down across the moors. There's no way to go back and see if there's a way to verify that.
It's funny you say that, because when I first got into investigating and stuff, and I won't name the website, but a lot of us have been there, but like there's one website online. It's just anytime you search stuff, it seems to come up because it's a dictionary of different events. But they're all like that. There's no video evidence, but it's a small paragraph. So-and-so has been seen at this amount of time at the window, and it's just like, was that based on one account? Was it several accounts? We don't know, but I know exactly what you're saying. It's like that. There's no...
Yeah, it's just anecdotal information, and it's collected. Well, Harry Price, and actually some of the folks who were like budding paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, when it was still very new, when it was more a reaction to the spiritualist movement, and you had both skeptics and believers trying to find proof. They were in a difficult position. Actually, I found myself in the same position with some stuff in Haunting Experiences in the Ghost Hunter's Survival Guide. For the privacy laws, there were names I had to change. Unless I was able to get a person's permission, signed, written, affidavit to allow the use of their name and their story, I had to basically change the names to protect the innocent. But in addition to changing those names, you have to change enough details about the person or the haunting that somebody couldn't casually identify that person.
Right.
So it makes it like 100 years from now, somebody reads that, there's not going to be a way to, in some of those cases, ever verify those claims, because I had to intentionally obscure who was experiencing it. Because in some cases they were, well, in a few cases they had professions where they didn't want to have that, be a reflection on their credibility. Because it's still, especially in academic circles, very frowned upon for even believing that this stuff might possibly exist. If you're in like law enforcement, local government, things like that, those are also considerations for why you would not necessarily want your name associated with a haunting.